Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Greg Dietrich. We're going to give it just a couple more minutes, let some attendees trickle in. Give us about 2 minutes and we'll kick off the webinar. Thanks for joining. Hello, for those of you who have just joined, we're going to give it another minute, let more attendees filter in. So give us about 60 seconds and we'll kick this off. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to HiveIO's webinar today. I hope you guys are finding it welcoming to have these webinars on a weekly basis. My name is Greg Dietrich. I'm the Global SE Manager here at HiveIO. With me today, I've got Andy Mitchell and Derek Plattner, two of my senior SEs for HiveIO.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar.
Good morning.
So today, our focus for the webinar is on Hive Fabric CE. So Hive Fabric, for those of you who haven't joined the webinar before, is a complete virtualization stack for your data center. Everything from VDI, virtual servers, storage, networking. It is a complete software-defined data center in a single stack. So just as a brief intro to Hive Fabric. Hive Fabric CE is our free offering, our free download to anybody who registers and would like to take Hive Fabric for a test run. We're offering now Hive Fabric CE. So HiveIO as an organization, during our development of Hive Fabric, our product, really the key motivator, the key idea or concept behind it is really to remove the complexity from data center architectures, software, components, licensing, to simplify that into a stack that's able to be operated by IT generalists, right? So really, Hive Fabric is about empowering the IT generalist for your virtualization operations without the need for specialists. All right, so without the need for a storage-centric specialist or a virtualization product specialist, networking, that sort of thing. So it's about empowering organizations of any size to use general IT, systems administrators of many different hats to run that virtualization layer. And that's really the key concept behind what we're doing here with Hive Fabric. And I'll run through a couple slides on what Hive Fabric is and kind of what the problems that we solve before we get right into CE, just in case we have any new members joining today or new attendees joining today. So really, when we look at today's data center, as well as yesterday's of several years, really hasn't been a lot of true innovation over the past decade. Right, there's been a lot of consolidation of different tiers of technology from storage, networking, compute. There's been consolidation efforts. There's been, additional components that are all tied together to make the data center work more efficiently, but there's really been no true innovation. We still rely on, multiple different stacks, multiple vendors, multiple specialists to run our data centers, to run all the different components of our data centers, even in hyper-converged platforms, right? The concept of compute, storage, and networking has all been consolidated into single hardware, but we still, for the most part, require different specialists, different technologies to run different aspects of that platform, whether it be storage, compute, networking, VDI. And VDI is probably the most telling of all the technologies on all the multiple layers that have to be included to get it accomplished. And really, that's the crux of what we're solving here with Hive Fabric. So when we look at Hive Fabric, it is a complete virtualization product, and this is kind of a visual representation of all the different components that are included in the Hive Fabric platform. Remember, this is an all-inclusive virtualization platform, so it is a single install, a single license to run all of these different components of your data center. So from the hypervisor that provides you the virtualization engine to run your VDI, your VMs, your virtual servers, that is included in a single install, as well as storage virtualization. And we'll get a little bit more into the details behind what we do with storage during our demonstration today. So networking is also a strong component that's included in this single install. All right, so we have the ability to virtualize multiple networks based upon either physical NIC separation or VLAN separation. And as we start talking orchestration and above, this is really where the intellectual property of HiveIO or Hive Fabric comes into play. It's all based on this message bus that you see here at the bottom. And that message bus really is the component that ties everything together, from hypervisor, storage, your orchestration layer for brokering and providing gateway access to desktops, desktop provisioning, right? All of that is tied together by this message bus that provides us with kind of a distributed peer-to-peer platform that requires no additional management. When you install Hive Fabric as a platform or as a single host, everything is included: the management, the workload, the provisioning, the broker, right? All of these different pieces that are typically represented in multiple layers, from centralized management to connection servers or broker VMs or physical appliances. All that goes away with the Hive Fabric platform, and what you're left with is this very efficient platform that is a single license, single installation.
That's a great point, Greg, and I think we love to reiterate that more, because with Hive Fabric we really don't need any dedicated management infrastructure to support Hive Fabric. It really just means you install Hive Fabric on your workload host, and makes a huge difference on small deployments and the architecture going forward.
Yeah, you've mentioned in several of our conversations, Andy, when we're in discussions with customers who aren't running thousands of desktops, right? Typically the approach to that management layer, the hardware that's dedicated to that management cluster, is typically larger than the workload, right? So you've got multiple, 2-3 hosts dedicated to a management cluster, excuse me, that run all your different management aspects for VDI. You may only have 1 or 2 workload hosts, right? And with Hive Fabric, that goes away. So we don't need that additional management layer. I think that's a great point.
And and ultimately that comes down to cost. And if you're having to provision much hardware for your management as you are your workloads, then it's going to make a big difference.
I think operationally, you know, the efficiency that we gain from having everything deployed on a single platform, on a single host or a series of hosts, really does take a lot of the complexity from operations, right? From networking, right? I don't have all these different components that tie together. You know, it's all included, self-contained in this, in this, Hive Fabric stack. So I wanted to go over that Hive Fabric, just a quick once over on it to kind of give those people, those attendees who have joined for the first time, an idea of what Hive Fabric is. And I think now is a good time to just jump straight into the demo on Hive Fabric and what CE means to you. So here we've got an HTML5 browser that we're going to log into our Hive Fabric install. For today's demonstration, we are running Hive Fabric CE. So for those of you who don't know, Hive Fabric CE is a new offering that HiveIO is providing to all of our potential customers, partners, technicians, whatever you want to label yourself as. We're offering it free as a download in a limited scope to provide you with basic functionality of the Hive Fabric platform. So everything you see here today, I'll call it out if it's not included in the platform. I'd say 90% of the features and functionality that are included in CE or in Hive Fabric are part of CE. What we're looking at here is basically your complete, virtualized data center. If we had multiple hosts in a production environment, you would have multiple hosts outlined here in this light blue. So the centerpiece of what you're looking at here is called our virtualizer. Virtualizer, I'm sorry. And working from left to right are all of the objects within your data center. For CE, it's going to be a single host, but this is your complete virtualized data center. Starting here on the left is your Hive Fabric cluster object. And at the cluster level, you would do things that are cluster-wide, such as enable and disable Hive Sense, which is enabled by default in CE. And configure all of your brokering services. Brokering services are available in our full product, and inside those brokering services include gateway access, broker access, two-factor and multi-factor authentication mechanisms, and your ability to build out the broker kind of white label it, so add graphics, add text as you see fit. Just to the right of this cluster object is our Hive Fabric host, right? So this is our virtualization host. This is the entirety. This is the only thing that's installed in our environment. There's no other management components installed to make this work. Everything is self-contained within each host. So if I had a cluster that included multiple hosts, say 3, 4, 5, 10, 16, whatever, I could log into any one of those hosts and manage the entire environment. For Hive Fabric CE, it's going to be a single host, single IP or DNS entry that you would log in to manage the environment. And here you have all the actions, right? So this is a content sensitive action menu. So depending on which object you selected will dictate which actions you have available to you. So here, just to the right of the host, we have all of our storage objects. And this is really interesting from a Hive Fabric perspective. By default, when you install Hive Fabric or Hive Fabric CE, you get two storage pools, local disk and local RAM. So we're kind of unique in the industry in that we provide you the capability to use local RAM as a primary storage tier. So for all of your stateless VDI efforts, this is a perfect storage medium to put those workloads on to give you the best performance and the lowest latency for your end users, best end user experience you can have. What we've added to our storage pools is this local NFS. So basically, I've taken the local storage that's available, excuse me, on this immersion 32, and I've shared it out as an NFS target. And this can be done with local disk. It can be done with local RAM. I'll get into a little bit more detail on that here in just a few minutes. But I can share it out on the network for use as a storage target. Right. So if I had a Hive Fabric installation on one host and I wanted to share out that RAM, across an environment for VDI storage or for log storage, something that needed that high performance but not necessarily persistent characteristic, I could do that. Along the right-hand side here, to kind of finish out our visualizer, is the guest pools that I've created here inside CE. So I've got, a stateless pool, VDI pool, a persistent VDI pool, as well as a pool of virtual machines. So this virtual machine pool here is for everything that's not pool related, right? So it's just titled virtual machine. So this one happens to be a Windows 2016 server that's running in the environment, right? The other ones here are actual pools of desktops. So I've got a pool of a persistent desktop and a pool of a few different stateless desktops. The important thing to call out here is the way this user interface is reacting to my interactions with it. And that's really the key for Hive Fabric, is to relay to you, the end user, everything about your software-defined data center at a glance, right? So here I know by selecting my demo stateless that this entire VDI pool that contain those 3 VMs that I showed you are contained in local RAM, and they're all hosted on Immersion 32, which is my CE host, right? In larger deployments, as you move from kind of the CE platform to a production type of environment, you would have multiple hosts, multiple pools, and this would really begin to make sense to the end user who, to relay as much information as possible. In Hive Fabric, everything that you see is all about color, size, patterns to relay to you that information. So I think maybe you saw over here in our stateless VDI pool, I've got one VM that's showing dark green and the other 2 are light green. Well, as a Hive administrator or Hive Fabric administrator, you would know that the light green means that that guest is in a ready state, ready to be logged in. And the guest that is dark green is actually logged into. So that's where you get the user icon, and that's where the dark green nature comes from. So we're really trying to relay to you as much information as possible about the data center, about what's going on at a single glance. So logging into this user interface, I would know, hey, everything looks to be going right, but over here I've got this alert, right, which is this little exclamation point icon, and any piece in here that has an alert, you'll see the little icon on top of it, and that'll be blue, yellow, or red depending on the severity of the alert. Here, this alert just means that I've reached my maximum licensed guest count for this Hive CE implementation. So we have set a maximum guest count for 5 guests on CE to allow you to run, local desktops, for your home environment, for you to test out as a platform, desktops, servers, whatever you want to put on it, but we have limited it to 5. So as we kind of round out this, kind of conversation here on the UI, I think it's important to note some of the other key features here. And these will become more and more important as you scale out the environment. So our ability to sort this UI live based upon CPU utilization, memory utilization, number of alerts, that sort of thing. And this is a live user interface that will react accordingly. We recognize that for you as our end user community, the most important thing to you is to bring to your attention that 5% of VMs or systems that are providing you problems, right? We really don't care about the 90 to 95% of machines that are running perfectly. So this filtering over here allows you to filter out that noise, if you will, that's associated with those things that are running well, right? So if I didn't want to see storage pools in my environment, I just wanted to look at workload, I could disable my ability to see storage pools, right? Or VM pools, or sort by number of alerts, that sort of thing. So that's one of the key features here of this virtualization dashboard. Over on the right hand side, we've got, you know, an actions item, alerts, and metadata. So here's where you'll get all the information about whatever object you've selected, right? So here at the cluster level, I see that I've got 5 virtual machines across 3 pools and a single host, right? I've seen my alerts that I've reached my max license guest count, and I have the ability to restart storage services. So diving in a little bit deeper into kind of host related functionality, some of the key features that you would probably focus on for your CE or your production Hive Fabric deployment. I'd like to kind of point out some of those right now. And one of the key characteristics that I find most customers ask about is the ability to work with storage. All right, so if we'll go back to this, and I've got my host selected, and I want to just work with my local storage. So here I click on configure local storage, and here I've got quite a few different things that I can do to modify or to adjust the storage and how I want to interact with it. So if I wanted to use this host as a just RAM accelerated storage, I could take this % of RAM storage and I could up that to 90-95%, and it would increase that local RAM pool to, you know, almost the maximum amount that's on the host, and I would then share it out for others to use, right? Other systems, other fabric hosts to use as a very high performance platform. If you guys joined me last week on the iometer performance, this is the way that we got the 110,000 IOPS with 0.3 milliseconds of latency, right? Was using this type of mechanism to run our VDI platform. So additionally, we've included in 7.3, which is our predecessor to CE, we've included the ability to adjust for different disk architectures within the system. Andy, if you would like to talk about this, I know this was kind of one of your brainchilds, right, on introducing different disks of different performance characteristics.
Yeah,
If you'd like to go through this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really great feature of Hive Fabric. One of the things that we've been developing and testing is the ability to take the disks in the host, and as you can see on this particular example here, we've got an NVMe drive, and what we've been doing is been able to front your data storage tier with cache drives. You can see that the disks are presented to us, and what we can do is actually select that NVMe drive and put it in front of your data storage and basically present a cache drive to accelerate the performance even higher. This really gives you the opportunity to deliver super fast, low latency, hyper-converged storage across your cluster. We also include, you know, as part of this disk management, the ability to take multiple disks and actually software RAID them within the platform. Greg, if you want to just pick up that point on the RAIDing, I know we can offer
Sure.
features. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you walk through the installation of your Hive Fabric platform, and we'll go over all the resources available to you as end users for CE. As you walk through that installation, there's an option in the very beginning to select your disks for installation. So for example, if you don't have a RAID card in your server and you've got, you know, multiple SSDs or multiple hard drives presented to the installer, you can select all of those and choose a RAID 1 architecture, RAID 5 architecture, whatever you want, and the installer will actually RAID those together through a software-based RAID, and you would see that as a single disk target here in the UI. And I think it's also important to note here, Andy and Derek, that the ability to identify a cache drive, so an NVMe drive in front of spinning disk, or SSD in front of spinning disk, or whatever however you want to set it up, it's available in the CE release as well as in the full production release, where you've got a hyper-converged architecture, right? That might be, presenting 10, 20 terabytes made up of spinning disks. I can still enable caching in front of that as well. So I think that's an important clarification to make there.
I think a good point here, Greg, is to point out how with these features, this really lends itself to some really high performance VSI sort of architectures, where we can take these disks and separate the smaller disks to put the Fabric OS, completely putting them in a redundant pair, taking another pair of, and we've done some tests on this, a pair of NVMe drives to provide the highest level performance cache drives, and then offloading to a set of disks for the primary data storage pool, which will then, as you can see on the feature on the screen there, the contribution to the hyperconverged. So those disks are then taken out of the host and utilized to create a fully hyperconverged shared storage pool across all of your hosts in the cluster.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, that also, leads us to the discussion over compression and deduplication, right? You're going to want a higher performing disk as a cache drive to afford you the performance necessary to do some of that compression and deduplication. Unless you're using it for file or user profile storage, that sort of thing, then that wouldn't be necessary. But I think that's a good point. And I think just to round out this storage conversation, this capability isn't limited to SSDs or NVMe or spinning disk, right? Any disk that you want to introduce to the system, Hive Fabric really doesn't care what it is. If the host sees it as a local disk, we're going to be able to work with it. So as technology advances, right, there's going to be more and more platforms that we'll be able to include into this configuration. And I think last, as we talk about local storage and working with local storage, the ability to share out these local disk, local RAM targets, if we were in a hyper-converged platform for our full production license users, you would see that as another target. So just by selecting that storage tile and then share or unshare allows you to expose that to the network as an NFS storage target, and you can actually configure it to limit access, right? So I can limit access to those NFS storage targets to a single IP or actually a subnet, right? A network IP here, network address. So I think that's also important to call out. So as we kind of move on with the demonstration and the different features included here, some of the ones that would come with a fully licensed platform is going to be CRS, right? So I can enable CRS here, but it's really not going to do anything for you because it stands for Cluster Resource Scheduler. So when we exist in a cluster across more than one host, so 2, 3, 4, whatever, we can enable CRS and load balance, or to keep that resource balanced across the environment. By default, as you submit things to a Hive host or a Hive cluster, you see here that you're just submitting it to a local disk or local RAM or to the cluster. You don't actually build a VM and say, I want to put a VM on this host using this data store. You trust Hive Fabric that it knows its resources and where it should be put. So when you create a VM, a VDI, virtual server, you're submitting it to the cluster and you're letting the cluster decide. Of course, you get to choose local disk, local RAM, or another data store, but you don't select the host because, with our intelligent message bus, we know what the resource utilization is across the cluster, and we know the best place to put that workload.
Greg, one of the key features that really resonates with a lot of my customers is the ability for Hive Fabric to be updated. As you described with our peer-to-peer management architecture, the host can be upgraded and patched, added, taken away. I think it's a really key feature of Hive Fabric that, you know, it typically causes problems with traditional architectures. It'd be really good if you could show the audience how easy that is and the process for updating and patching and taking
Sure.
it out of
Yeah.
maintenance mode.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, funny you should mention that. That's so we work with a customer out of Arizona. It's a school district, Sunnyside Unified School District, and that was one of their key complaints with their previous technology, is that the upgrades were just horrifically difficult, because you've got hypervisor layer upgrades to do, then you've got VDI stack on top of that that needs to be updated, and then you've got all the different management components that have to be updated in concert with that, and it really limits organizations on their ability to keep current with the platform, right? Because it takes so much time and effort to coordinate that across the board. That I find that a lot of organizations are hesitant to actually upgrade. So with Hive Fabric, we'll go over here to upgrade hosts, and here kind of just an overview of where we started. So when I initially built out this Hive CE Hive Fabric, I built it out with 1222, and what I have the ability to do is actually to add an update package, right? So I click on add, and I browse my computer for an update package for Hive Fabric, and I can stage it, right? And that's what I've done here with this latest version 1228, is I've added that, I've staged it, and I've deployed it. And the key here is I didn't go into maintenance mode. I didn't have to shut down my VM workload. This update to 1228 was done with all of this workload running. So with my virtual servers running and my stateless and persistent desktops running, I've upgraded Hive Fabric from the core build, which was build 1222, to the latest and greatest software package for this, which is 1228, and it upgrades the entirety of our Hive Fabric orchestration layer.
Greg, I know we're talking about CE today, but I think another key point to tell the audience is about how when we add another host to the cluster, literally, again, simplifying the whole process of maintenance and management, that when as soon as you join a host to the cluster, it will adopt all of the functionality and features of the rest of the cluster, again, reducing the time. And this is all part of the process of being able to take hosts in and out of our architecture because of the underlying message bus and architecture.
You know, that does give me an idea. So as our audience downloads CE and installs it in their environment, and they're testing it out, and they've followed the videos, and they've created, you know, a realm to bind it to a domain, right, for not only authentication but to enumerate guest pools, user groups, right, for access, or to join computers to the domain, right, as they've built out profiles for the individual VDI access, and the profiles dictate, you know, what is your user session going to allow? Is it going to allow the local disk redirection, clipboard redirection, you know, all of those kind of broker functionalities? That's all defined here in our profiles. As you work through that and you get it running in your environment, you know, enabling that for production is kind of two-step. One, apply a production license. That's all you got to do, and it will enable everything else. It will enable you to cluster, enable you to configure your desktop broker and gateway, right? That's the first step. Second step is just like you said, Andy. If I go to my resource menu here and I click on host, I can add a host to this cluster, and that new host inherits the realm, the profile, the pools. It inherits all of the configuration that I've done here for my environment. That new host inherits it. So building out clusters and scaling your cluster in a production environment is super simple, right? With this mechanism, it just makes it, you know, that much easier to scale and to know what your scale means, right? So an environment where, you know, you're running a beefy server that's got, you know, 80, 100 desktops on it. I know that if I scale by one more host, I'm going to add 80 to 100 more guests, right? So it's when you talk about capacity planning and scaling your environment, you're not talking about, well, okay, what management layers do I need to put in place? Do I need more provisioning servers? Do I need more, you know, connection brokers? Do I need more of these? In Hive Fabric, the answer is no. You scale host by host. You know what scale means, and capacity planning becomes that much easier. So that was a good point, Andy.
Thank you, Greg. That's really good.
I do want to kind of finish up the demonstration of the environment here. So we've gone over this visualizer. We know how to filter the environment. We know how to kind of look at the operations, right? To, you know, following documentation. And by the way, all of the setup and how-tos are set up for CE. We've got videos, we've got documents, and I'll provide you the audience with links to that here in just a few minutes. Oh, yep. I wanted to show you kind of the last piece of the puzzle here, and that's in our performance dashboard. So this dashboard can be seen for any host, any guest within the system, and this is really your view into the health. How is your system performing? Right, so if we kind of start here along the bottom, we've got this alerts timeline here that is able to be toggled from an hour to a day to 7 days, 30 days, that sort of thing. And what you get here along the bottom is you see this series of dots. If at any point in time the number of alerts grows, you would see a larger dot. So what this really enables you to do is come in from a weekend or a vacation and look at your timeline and say, you know, what's happened over the last 7 days? I see on this date and time that I had some alerts. You know, let's take a look at that. And I can click on that and I can freeze the graph across the board for that time period. So if we actually pick a better one than that, if we just kind of rewind here. Now it's frozen that graph at a point in time where you see what the CPU is doing, what the memory is doing, what your local storage IO is doing, your storage capacity, the number of VMs, your network IO. You see what they're doing all in concert with another, right? So now you can begin to build correlations. You know, one of the examples I like to talk through here is, you know, as you scale out this timeline from an hour to a day, 7 days, 30 days, sometimes you miss some of those peaks and valleys, right, in performance. So let's say we've had alerts here, or we notice a significant tick in network IO, right? Typically that would kind of not be seen because as you scale out from an hour to a day to 7 days and 30 days, those performance of those averages become almost a solid line. As you see, what we've done here is not only provide you with the averages, which is the solid lines here, but we've also provided you with the maximum and the minimum at that same timeline in that shadowed background. So now what I like to say here is, or what I like to discuss here is, let's think about backups and their impact on the environment, right? When backups run, they increase storage IO, they increase some CPU, they increase network IO. And that's kind of outside of your general virtualization environment, and sometimes it's missed, right? So if we see a period in our Hive Fabric environment where we've got a significant amount of network traffic that we really don't have any other reason to you know, for that traffic to be there, it identifies that as a potential for something outside the box that's going to be causing a problem, whether it's be backups or an antivirus scan or something like that. So that's really where we're going with this, you know, this dashboard, is to provide you a holistic view of what performance looks like in your hosts and your guests as well. So I know we're kind of rounding out the 45-minute webinar, so I do want to jump back over here and kind of give you a summary of what CE is providing you. So here we've kind of got a feature comparison. You can find this on our website as well. of what full Hive Fabric is versus what CE is, right? We discussed Hive Fabric being this all-inclusive platform for VDI, for virtualization. It really is. Everything here is included in a single install, single license with every install, and they're just features that need to be turned on or left off or however you want to manage it. All right, with Hive Fabric CE, we're providing you the power of all of the hypervisor functionality, all of the VM orchestration, right? The ability to build out stateless and persistent VDI, to create VDI that has user profile support built in, right, via our user volumes, right? The ability to work with software-defined networking, snapshots, right? All of that is included in CE. Where you find that we've limited CE is in those features that are typically associated with production deployments. So the ability to cluster, the ability to build out hyper-converged storage, right? Clustering, automatic cluster, load balancing, and then VDI brokering and gateway services. So really the enterprise level features that you would find within a production virtualization
I think a key point, Greg, here would be to just point out sort of Hive Fabric's hyper-converged storage can be created from anything from 2 nodes upwards. This is a new feature with 7.3. So literally, moving forward with production Hive Fabric, you can now create a hyper-converged storage pull from a minimum of 2 hosts upwards now.
Yep, that's a good point. So as we kind of round out this conversation, I want to provide you with some resource links. So Hive Fabric CE is available for you to register for now. Just click on the link here or go to the link here. You can't click on the webinar. And here I've also included some of the URLs for the how-tos, right? So if you go onto our website, it's all there under Hive Fabric CE. But we've got videos for installing and configuring, for creating a VDI template from scratch, managing your RAM storage, creating desk pools, all of that. Everything we've included in our webinar here today should be covered in the videos and associated documentation. So I'll pause there to address any questions that we might have.
First question that's come in, Greg, is one of the attendees has asked about will the link be sent out, just to have messaged that everybody back, but that the video will be made available after the session is finished to everybody.
Yep, that is correct.
There's none on it, Greg.
Okay. Well, that's great. Either I've covered everything that they would ever want to know, or we've got some shy attendees. But nonetheless, visit our website for HiveIO.com. Look at the Hive Fabric CE link, register for it, download it. It's a free 12-month license for you to use as you see fit. Reach out to us at info@HiveIO.com with any questions, any direct questions, any questions about Hive Fabric CE, or if you want to talk about Hive Fabric in general for your organization, feel free to reach out to us at any point in time. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
With that being said, you guys have a great day. Thanks for attending.